Good afternoon and welcome in the TV show The Future of Europe by the student of the Master European and International Law of the University Catholic of Lille, focusing on the evolution of competition law in the EU. I am pleased to welcome Lola AMARA, a student of this course. So how are you today?
Good afternoon, I'm fine, thank you.
So thank you for being here with us. To better understand the topic of the program today, could you explain the evolution that will be for you crucial for the future of European in the field of competition law?
Of course. So the European Union has developed exponentially competition law, and the protection afforded by the law are much higher than before, protecting not only competing companies but also individuals and the functioning of the common market itself. However, as Margaret Vestager explained, Commissioner for the Competition Law, there are still some aspects of competition law that need to be developed. And indeed, for example, the fight against collusion between companies, also known as cartel, need to be developed. Today, cartels are mainly regulated by Article 101 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, with civil penalties. This cartel is qualified as incompatible with the common market and are therefore prohibited. Moreover, they are so harmful that a debate on their punishment has been held by legal professionals. Indeed, a criticism of the European sanction has been made in comparison with the neighboring system of the United States, which characterize cartels as a crime and proposes sanctions accordingly. Finally, the convergence of procedures between the two systems has contributed to the debate of a possible alignment of sanctions.
So you seem to have taken place in this debate. But what is your actual opinion? Are you in favor or against this development?
To be honest, it is difficult to take a clear position for or against an amendment of the sanctions. Well, currently in the European Union, agreements between companies are punished by nullity, and in order for them not to be repeated, a fine is imposed on the companies concerned. However, the imposition of increasingly heavy fine demonstrates for some authors the legitimacy of the whole debate. For example, a 2.9 billion fine was imposed in 2016 on European truck manufacturers for participating in a cartel for over 14 years. In my opinion, the arguments for and against are to be considered and all seem legitimate.
So considering the current state of the EU system, what do you think the imposition of criminal sanctions against companies involved in a cartel could bring to the EU?
Well, certainly the imposition of criminal sanctions against cartel through an harmonization at the EU level would bring a much greater deterrent effect. Indeed, for example, a prison sentence that could be imposed on you would make you think twice rather than the imposition of a fine on your company. To be directly subject to sanctions makes a difference. For example, this deterrent effect is in line with the European desire to eliminate cartels. And if the imposition of criminal sanction is a possibility at the national level, most of the time they are not implemented. According to Emmanuel Combe, the current sanctions are far from optimal. They have reached large sums, but remain symbolic in scope and have been heavily criticized for their limited reach. So, to give you an example to understand better, it is permitted in France under Article 420-6 of the Commercial Code to impose criminal sanctions on individuals, but they have not been applied since the 1960s. And it is noticeable that recent punishment of cartels is limited to a financial penalty and a publication order, as it was the case in 2021 concerning a cartel in the sector of the manufacture and marketing of cold industrial sandwiches. In my opinion, criminal sanctions would make leniency programs more attractive and would allow a better detection of cartels. Indeed, since the introduction of the leniency program in 2006 until 2022, the Commission has received more than 500 applications in exchange of a reduction or elimination of the punishment. And I think this can, more deterrent sanction could lead to a greater number of detection of cartels.
When listening to these arguments, one might feel convinced, but then what would prevent such a reform?
To be honest, such a reform seems to be unfeasible. There are numerous constraints. For example, the implementation of such a reform would be almost unthinkable, since most people in the European Union doesn't believe in the fact that an operator could be to send an operator to prison, for attempting to earn more money. And the perception of cartels in the EU is far from what is in the United States. So it doesn't seem compatible with criminal sanctions when in comparison with the European traditions and values. Indeed, most people do not realize the damage generated by cartels because of the low personal impact. And as said by Francesco Dusci, some cartels are even qualified as victimless because you don't seem to suffer from a cartel. There is a low personal impact and you're under only a very small portion of the harm generated. And the imposition of criminal sanctions requires also an amendment of the text and a remodeling of the whole system, and this modification has a cost. Without an ensured effectiveness of the process, a decline of the legitimacy against cartels, of the fight against cartel may be seen.
Okay, so thank you very much, Lola, for sharing your thoughts with us on the possible evolution of competition law at the European Union level. And thank you for following us, and see you soon.
Thank you.